Welcome back, everybody, to day 2 of Eternal Masters 2018. Today is the Legacy Tournament, and we're here for round 1 with Lee Greaves playing Ankh Burn and his opponent Drew Carter on Burn. Joining me today in the coverage is Liam.
Hello, welcome.
And so, a very interesting match here for round number 1. We've got a Burn mirror, however, Lee opting out with not the traditional Burn as with Drew today.
Yeah, there's a bit of spice in both lists actually, but Lee has the 2-cost artifact that whenever a land enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to that land's controller. So I guess that's really sort of a bit of spice and a bit of difference, and going to do quite a bit of damage this whole day, I think.
Yeah, it's very interesting, especially him using Shrapnel Blast as a sort of another way to get around maybe some extra value with his burn spells, whereas with Drew's side, he's just got pretty much a standard burn list, maybe a Hazaret of the Feverent being a little bit of a spicy addition.
Yeah, which is a standard all-star, which is...
So, looks like the players are shuffled up, ready to go. Not too sure who's going first. Typically the player who's on first in the burn mirror is pretty favoured. I think both players would really like to get off to the fast start. So it looks like Lee has... So Drew's on the play. Drew leads with a mountain and a swift spear. Pretty standard, and getting in.
First damage has been dealt, and we're off to the races.
Lee draws mountain for the turn. Probably looking to play his Goblin Guide. Yep, he does that. Goblin Guide gets in quickly. Hopefully, yeah.
And potentially really wants his opponent to draw lands.
Yep.
It's going to play into his plan quite well.
So I think a Goblin Guide was revealed off the top there for Drew as well. So now Drew's going to untap and draw the Goblin Guide that was revealed from Lee's Goblin Guide. Playing a Foothills. And straight to the dome there from Drew, taking 3 damage off Lee's life total.
I mean, it is a race, and got to deal that damage before your opponent does.
Yep. So Drew cracks his Wooded Foothills. Getting a mountain. Probably looking to follow up with another creature, probably the Goblin Guide. I think it's very important that Drew gets creatures down on the board early so that Lee has to quickly react with his burn spells. Because if Drew's able to bait out those burn spells with his own creatures, then it's going to be very hard for Lee to actually target his life total in the end.
Yeah, I guess any burn spell that's going towards a creature rather than a player is a win.
Yeah. I think as a burn player, Drew's typically looking to get 4 to 5 damage in with each creature. So it looks like Lee might be thinking about a Lava Spike. So I think he's got the Eidolon in his hand. It's interesting they didn't opt to play that.
Is it a consideration that he's already on a lower life, that he doesn't want to play it straight away because of that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. Lee's definitely on the back foot here, I think. Oh, I think they missed. There's now a judge call for the missed Goblin Guide trigger off of Drew's attack. So we'll just quickly get that sorted out.
Obviously, we are playing at competitive REL, and you really do want to call a judge if there's any issues.
Yep. I think be interested to see what unfolds here. Looks like... So we are in Lee's main phase, so Lee's already drawn the card that would have potentially been revealed off Goblin Guide. So...
And we do have it confirmed that, it was the Goblin Guide mistrigger there. Now Something to judge about?
I think.
So, apart from the sort of creature advantage, what really, of these two lists, what sort of is going to win the game for either Drew or Lee?
I think control of the board is very important, especially in the burn mirror. If Drew being very far ahead now just because of his 2 creatures on the board. I think, again, we talked about like the fact that Lee now has to target Drew's creatures with burn spells is very good for Drew, so that inevitably Drew's just able to hit his burn spells at Lee's face while Lee's forced to deal with creatures on the ground.
Is there a stage where Lee just doesn't attack and will trade guides, or?
I think so. I think he's got to put that into consideration now, I think, now that he's at 12 and Drew's got roughly, I think, 3 cards in hand. You've sort of got to be a bit skeptical about what's going on. Got to be a bit cautious. Because I think Drew's really looking for a Fire Blast here. I think probably the most useless card in his list is Price of Progress, as he could have just assumed that Lee's running straight up mountains and fetch lands, so there's not going to be a lot of value from Price.
So he might get surprised by the sort of plan now.
Yep.
So it looks like there's been a warning to Drew.
Warning issued to Drew about his Goblin Guide trigger. So now it's Drew's main phase. He's looking to... I believe he's got a Foothills, his Hazoret and a Mountain in hand, and an unknown card.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if the game goes long and you've got the Hazoret, that's a fairly powerful card.
Yeah.
You get some...
Busy. The only thing that can really target or kill Hazoret from Lee's side is pretty much just the 2 copies of Shrapnel Blast. So Hazoret having 4 toughness is very important. Can't just be straight up bolted. So, as we sort of can expect, Drew's opting to get lots of value and damage in with his creatures by removing Lee's with his burn spells. Eidolon being revealed off the Goblin Guide trigger. Lee taking 4 there. And Lee immediately plays his Eidolon, I think just for the protection at this stage.
And I guess that Chain Lightning, while, in the long run, is going to do more damage by killing the creature rather than, Lee blocking Goblin Guides, Drew losing his Goblin Guide, and then not having that attacker going forward.
So it looks like Drew's cracking a fetch and slamming his Hazoret down. Hazoret doesn't get hit with the Eidolon trigger, which is pretty relevant.
And also means that Drew can avoid those triggers by just discarding cards.
Yep. So things looking pretty grim here for Lee in game 1. He was on the draw though, so hopefully he can steal game 2. So Hazoret will have haste as well because of Drew's single card in hand.
There's also something very powerful in most games of Magic is when your opponent has to read your card.
Yes.
I'm not talking about if it's a foreign card, but if they don't know how to play around it.
Yep. I think Lee, being a very well-known Eternal player, he's thinking about why on earth there's a standard card in Drew 75. So Fire Blast off the top from Lee. Which...
A little bit of a shortcut there, but
yep.
Everything happens still.
What can Lee do here? He just needs to kill Hazoret with the fight.
Nothing. I think if you did kill Hazoret, you still got the other 2 creatures, and he'll have 2 Drew would have 2 cards in hand.
Yeah.
So what are we sideboarding here? Does Price of Progress just come out for both decks?
Yeah, I think the 4 prices will come out for Drew, especially. Drew's looking to probably add in his 2 copies of Searing Blaze, a Searing Blood, and probably a Exquisite Firecraft, just so he can deal with Lee's early creatures, considering that Lee's now getting on the play.
And I guess a way to deal with those creatures while still dealing damage to the opponent is pretty powerful.
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, definitely see both play sets of prices out. Lee's probably looking to do the same sort of strategy, add in those value burn spells that can kill creatures.
He's got a Pyroclasm. Like, would he ever like bring that in just to clear the board if he's behind creatures, or is it not worth a spot if it's not dealing damage to your opponent?
I think on the draw, so maybe game 3 we might see it come in. But I think on the play he's really looking just to sort of curve out, play 1 drop, play 2 drop, play 3 drop, start attacking. Whilst on the draw he can then play Pyroclasm. If Drew plays a 1 drop and a 2 drop, he can get lots of value through the Pyroclasm on the draw. But on the play I think it's just sort of what you don't want to be doing.
I guess that's one of the. I mean, like, all games of Magic, but Legacy especially is how to switch gears.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're on the play in this matchup, you really want to be racing out the gates.
Yeah, exactly right. So it looks like Lee's both players deep in the tank about their sideboarding options. Looks like Drew's taking out a Sulfuric Vortex, which is probably correct. Sulfuric can be maybe even a bit slow, just because he's on the draw now.
Yeah, I almost feel like, obviously Drew's up the game, but Lee probably has a better understanding of the. I mean, they're both playing Burn, but Lee's Spice has not been revealed at all.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Drew's pretty safe to think, so he's playing. Looks like he's four crop. He's taking out the prices and the Sulfuric Vortexes there, as expected with the price.
Wouldn't it be great if then Lee leads out on a Great Furnace? And
That would be, yes. Very, but I think, yeah, prices, it's pretty, really strong main board, especially against the meta. I mean, there's a lot of 3-color decks running around, running duels, and so if you can chuck down a price for 6 damage, it can be very powerful, especially, yeah, against multiple colors of decks.
I feel like that's a card that goes from being like the best card in the deck to your worst card in the deck, depending on the matchup.
Definitely. But Burn being a very uncommon deck choice, it's safe to say that both players were not expecting it. So it looks.
And this is also a great example of, like, Burn has a fairly stock list, but both players are adding their own sort of touch to this to make it to hedge bets and also to give themselves game when they maybe wouldn't normally.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because I feel like Burn is one of those decks where sometimes you just, especially if your opponent has a Deathrite, you might just be out of range for the kill.
Yeah.
They both obviously have plans of how to go longer without sacrificing too much of the game plan.
So it looks like players are ready to go for game 2, each drawing their 7. Lee doesn't look like he's got land. He's got a mulligan immediately.
So is it the curve out you're really looking for in this opening hand?
Yeah.
That you want?
I think you really want a Goblin Guide or a Swift Spear right off right from the start from Lee's side. He really needs to get in that early damage, as we saw that Drew did in the first game. So it looks like Drew's keeping his 7.
Which looks like it has some spells that would deal 3 damage to Lee.
Yeah. So it looks like Lee mulligan into 5, which is
not how you want to start the day with a game 1 loss and then a mull to 5.
I did see an ensnaring bridge from Lee, so that could be very interesting. But I think, especially now with the mull to 5, it's going to be hard for him to cast his 3 mana spells if he draws them.
On the plus side, you have less work to get bridge online.
Yeah.
It's silver lining. You've got to look for the silver lining.
Yeah, you've got to look at the positives. So hopefully, sees a mountain on top, puts it there. No land on turn 1, so this could be a very quick game. If Drew leads, hopefully, Drew's looking for a creature here, preferably a Goblin Guide, but he's probably just going to Or
straight
even
to- I,
a sky to the top. You wouldn't want to. You didn't want to.
like you would know that it would have to be a land on
Yeah.
top. There's no way you would keep on top if it wasn't.
Both players getting hit with one burn spell each. Drew drawing a chain lightning. It looks like. He'll be looking to end this game very quickly, considering he knows that Lee's just top decking for lands now. So I think Drew's thinking about a 1-mana spell. Chain Rift Bolt.
Suspending next turn. Yeah, sequencing is very important in these decks. I think,
Yeah.
especially when you've got instant speed and sorcery speed burn spells.
So it looks like Drew has a second 1-mana spell he's wanting to play immediately. Looks like he is going to be playing probably nothing, just fetching for insurance. So Lee did find the second land, gets Barbarian Ring, Chain Lightnings, Drew, and plays Barbarian Ring tapped. Drew's going to end the turn bolt. Lee down to 14. Upkeep.
Yeah, the Rift Bolt goes to the dome. We are really into the races.
So it looks like Drew's going to play a Swift Spear here and probably Chain Lightning. Yep. Get that Prowess trigger in for extra damage. So Lee's going to fall to 6 here. And I think Drew looks like he's got a Lightning Bolt in hand, so this could be over very quickly.
Yeah, it looks like Drew might be off to the Polish bakery.
Yep. Lee playing his idol.
I guess it has to block, but I mean, I don't think Drew is that upset about that play at all.
Yep. I think Drew he can play a second Swift Spear. It depends if he wants. Okay, so he's opting to take 2 damage for the Swift Spear and the Lightning Bolt in order to get an extra Prowess trigger off the Swift Spear, which is interesting. I think that's a bit almost. So he could have played that so he only took 2 damage off the Eidolon, but he would sacrifice the 1 Prowess trigger off his Swift Spear.
What also means that it
Oh,
trades.
he bolted Lee, so he puts Lee to 1. Lee has Ensnaring Bridge, so if all Drew needs is a burn spell here, and it's all over. Lee concedes. I think Lee's just saying that he's got
Well, he's got 1 card in hand and
two Ensnaring Bridge, yeah. So 2 very quick games there. Unfortunate for Lee, with game 2 especially.
Yeah. Also unfortunate that we couldn't see the spice.
Yeah. The Ankh.
I reckon that would have been. I reckon that adds a lot of play versus a lot of decks.
Yep.
Now, if you're playing today rather than commentating, what would you be playing? What would be your deck to play?
I think I'd be playing a Delver deck. Probably Grixis Delver or Rug Delver. I think that with the current meta, especially locally, Grixis would be the best.
Well, that was round 1, and we've seen Burn win in the Burn Mirror. Surprise, surprise. But that's puts Drew Carter on in a good spot for round 2. But
Yeah.
I feel like Lee will still have a fun day.
He'll win some games.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.